All right, let's talk about Novo Nordisk. For months, this was the stock to own, wasn't it? An absolute darling of the market, a name that just meant unstoppable growth. But that story has taken a really dramatic turn. The stock's been on a brutal losing streak, and it's left investors reeling, asking one huge question: what in the world happens now? So let's dive in and see if we can figure it out.
And wow, this is what that losing streak actually looks like. A drop of over 56% in just 1 year. That is a stunning reversal for a company that, not too long ago, could seemingly do no wrong. A number like that, it really forces all of us to confront a pretty tough reality.
And that reality, it really splits into two different paths, doesn't it? Was the initial excitement just a massive bubble that has finally spectacularly burst, or is this brutal sell-off actually creating the buying opportunity of a lifetime? That's the big question we're here to unpack.
Okay, so to get to the bottom of this, here's our game plan. First, we'll look at how Novo went from being a market favorite to a major source of concern. Then, we are going to dissect the reasons for this crash. After that, we'll explore the new CEO's plan for a comeback, weigh the risks that are definitely still lingering, and finally, we'll tackle that million-dollar question. Is this a golden opportunity, or is it a dangerously falling knife?
You know, it really wasn't that long ago that the investment thesis for Novo Nordisk was, well, it was simple. They were an unstoppable force. They were being fueled by these absolute blockbuster GLP-1 drugs, Ozempic and Wegovy. These are the medicines that mimic a natural hormone to help regulate blood sugar and appetite. So the company was seen as this leader in tackling two of the world's biggest health crises, diabetes and obesity. And the market, well, it just couldn't get enough.
But man, has that narrative flipped on its head. Completely. The market's view of Novo's future is now just clouded by this deep, deep skepticism. All that confidence has basically evaporated, and it's been replaced by a storm of doubt. So what exactly happened?
Well, this downturn wasn't caused by just one single thing. No, it was more like a perfect storm. It's a crisis that was born from this really toxic mix of chaos happening inside the company's walls and, at the same time, mounting pressure from the outside world.
Let's break this down into those two fronts, because it's really important. First, you've got the turmoil happening inside Novo Nordisk. And second, there are these significant threats closing in from all sides, from competitors to regulators.
Internally, it has been a total whirlwind of disruption. You've got a surprise CEO change, a massive shakeup of the supervisory board after a major strategy dispute, the announcement of 9,000 potential job cuts, and then, to top it all off, they lowered their growth forecast for 2025. I mean, this stuff signals deep instability right at the very top.
And look, this isn't just some drama happening in the boardroom. This quote right here from a Novo employee on Reddit really shows you the human cost. It captures the mood on the ground perfectly, this feeling of deep uncertainty that has employees literally looking for the exits.
Now, beyond that internal turmoil, the company is also facing these immense external pressures. The competition is absolutely fierce, especially from Eli Lilly with their rival drugs. Key patents are set to expire this decade, which is going to open the floodgates for cheaper generics. Regulators are putting huge pressure on prices, and the market is getting flooded with illegal copies and counterfeit versions of their blockbuster drugs. It's a lot.
And this chart just lays out that competitive landscape perfectly. I mean, while Novo still had the lead in diabetes market share back in 2024, Eli Lilly is a super formidable challenger. What's also interesting here is that Novo has significantly more employees, which, it raises questions about efficiency, and that's a point the new CEO is clearly focused on.
So, faced with this full-blown crisis, what's the plan? Well, the new management is not just sitting back and watching. They are kicking off a radical strategic shift, one that's designed to navigate this storm and chart a whole new course for growth. The new CEO, Mike Dustar, has laid out a really clear three-part strategy. First up, an aggressive attack on the cost structure to make things more efficient. Second, a big push to reinforce their already strong position in the global market. And third, a plan to fiercely defend their profit margins from that coming wave of generics and copycats. It's a very pragmatic, back-to-basics plan to stabilize the ship.
But listen, it's not just about playing defense. Novo is also playing offense here. A huge move is this major acquisition of Conroe Therapeutics. This is a strategic purchase, and it's designed to bolster their future drug pipeline and expand into a massive new market.
So this acquisition centers on a condition called MASH, and this, right here, is the new frontier. It's a severe liver disease, a progression from fatty liver disease, and it's closely linked to the obesity and diabetes epidemics. It affects a staggering number of people worldwide, but there are very few approved treatments. This represents a huge untapped market. And Akero's lead drug candidate? It's a potential best-in-class treatment for this very complex condition.
And Novo is betting big on this, really big. They've put down $4.7 billion in cash, up front, for Akero. This is not some small experiment. This is a massive, decisive investment in the company's future, a future beyond just Ozempic and Wegovy.
Okay, but let's not get ahead of ourselves. A new strategy and a big acquisition, they don't just magically erase all the problems. It's really important to be clear-eyed about the fundamental challenges that are still very much in play for Novo Nordisk.
Look, the company is still heavily, and I mean heavily, dependent on just 2 drugs. Even after the stock's big fall, high growth expectations are still baked into the price. That relentless pressure on patents and pricing continues to squeeze their margins. And they're facing legal headaches, including class action lawsuits. These are serious headwinds.
So, all of this brings us right back to the final critical question for any investor. Is Novo Nordisk an opportunity, or is it a falling knife? As you might expect, the experts on Wall Street are, well, they're deeply divided.
First, let's just quickly look at the valuation. The price-to-earnings ratio is now sitting at around 14. Now, this is a world away from those peak hype levels of over 40. So from a valuation standpoint, the stock is no longer in the stratosphere. It's actually back in line with the industry average.
And this slide just perfectly illustrates the huge division among analysts. You've got the bulls, like Deutsche Bank, seeing a potential upside of over 70%. But then on the other side, you have UBS rating the stock as neutral, seeing basically no upside from here. This is the very definition of a battleground stock.
This quote from an investor on Reddit, it just sums up the dilemma perfectly, doesn't it? The fear of getting hurt by a stock that just keeps dropping is real, but so is the fear of missing out on a potential rebound in what is still a quality company.
And so we end where we began. We now have a clear-eyed view of the internal chaos, the external threats, the bold new strategy, and, of course, the persistent risks. So is this a moment of maximum pessimism and a truly historic opportunity, or is it a trap for hopeful investors?
Ultimately, the answer is going to depend on whether you believe this new plan, which is centered on that bold bet on MASH, is enough to overcome the immense challenges ahead. As always, this analysis is for informational purposes only, so please do your own research and make your own informed